Gunsmoke. Brought to you by
the Red Shovel Network.
This is it.
Red Shovel Network
is best. Stands out from all the rest. Gunsmoke, starring
M.L. Elrick.
The transcribed story of the violence that moved west with young America. And the story of a man who moved with it.
I'm that man.
M.L. Elrick.
United States Marshal. The first man they look for and the last they want to meet. It's a chancy job, and it makes a man watchful and a little lonely.
You asked interrogative questions.
Get your finger out of my face. Get your finger out of my face.
Take the first shot, then if you want to,
Get your finger out of my face.
It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Elrick?
Well, it is 313 Day in Detroit, and I guess that's probably fitting for the soul of Detroit. And I'm not good with numbers. Journalists are generally not good with numbers, but this is episode 4 of the Soul of Detroit podcast. I'm your host, M.L. Elrick, investigative reporter at Fox 2. My co-pilot here is Marc Fellhauer of the Charlotte.
Just a guy. Oh, yeah, right? The Daddy and Charlotte podcast.
The Daddy and Charlotte podcast. And he slums around with some guy named Drew and some other ne'er-do-wells. And a little bit later, we'll be joined on the burner phone. Or last time we talked to him, I think he had 2 tin cans and a string with so many knots in it we could barely understand him. My man Shawn Windsor of the Detroit Free Press will be joining us later for the great debate where we'll be discussing the new Lions, who look a lot like the old Lions, which means our new Lions will look a lot like the old. But maybe not. And, of course, we'll have our Geek of the Week and Room 7609, our new wave hits feature. Actually, they should have been hits. They weren't, but we're going to make them hits, maybe get them a couple extra downloads on Spotify. Drew Lane, who at one time was the host of the Drew Wave movement, maybe
used to be Drew Wave.
Maybe joining us for that if we can get him off the couch here at Red Shovel Network headquarters. But I rushed here from Fox once again. We were in court with Bob Carmack, a very interesting fellow who within the past 12 months went from being somebody that only people in politics knew to being a guy that's known for wearing a wire on a city councilman, for showing some very curious video of the mayor of Detroit. So I want to walk through some of that and maybe give people a little tour through the mind of the media, because nobody gets it, not even me sometimes. God, I feel like I sound like Eli Zarrett.
You do sound off. Are you not? Are you not feeling well?
I got this. So last week was a big week. I was doing some.
Feel good.
I was doing some empty bowls, soup serving. It's a charity thing that Fox 2 got involved in. Then I went to go see Space Skull at Smalls and Hamtramck. We're going to have Space Skull on this show, because if you've never seen these guys, you're missing something.
Really?
And let me just tease ahead a couple episodes. Space Skull is a band that involves sort of an arty chick as the lead singer, some human sacrifice, and a neon dinosaur that does great battle, because it turns out there really is a space skull. So these guys are great. We got to have them on the air just to explain what the hell they're doing. So that was Friday night.
That sounds as confusing as the Carmack story.
So then Saturday was up to East Lansing. We don't have to go into that.
Too much running around.
Spartans knew what happened. Then Sunday, I had to host the family fun section
at the
St. Patrick's Day parade.
Should have been Space Skull hosting.
Space Skull would have been good. I think kids would have liked the neon dinosaur.
Yeah.
They might have been a little bit put off by all the blood, but kids
That's
these
for the
days,
adults.
But it's all catching up with me, and I was feeling kind of dog shit when I was at Costco last night on my way to Aldi, and I ran into Amy Dean, and it's the second time I've run into her, maybe the third time I've run into her when I was out and about. The first time was on Father's Day several years ago. I was going out every Father's Day. I go visit my grandpa's resting place at Resurrection Cemetery in Clinton Township. I was driving out. There was a beautiful day. I had my 62 Pontiac Tempest Le Mans convertible. And as I often do, I ran out of gas, which is really stupid. Because it's car's 50-something years old, so the needle doesn't really work. And I'm thinking, did I fill it up? Did I not fill it up? I can make it. Maybe I won't make it. Well, I didn't make it. I couldn't get it started. And this family at the pump next to me, because I pushed it up into this marathon station. I pushed this car, more than I've driven. I actually pushed it through the Windsor Tunnel one time.
I'm sure the people behind you love that.
Oh, they did. And did you know the Windsor Tunnel actually has an incline? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Until I'm pushing
It's a tunnel and all
old.
it goes under the water.
There's a lot of things you find out when
it's not a bridge.
When you have a car that won't
bridge
work.
has an
in front of
incline
you.
too.
And another thing, all you jackasses out there with the F-150s, when somebody says, "Hey, can you give my car a push because you're driving a truck, a work truck?" and they're like, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that." I'm like, "I'll put a blanket on the bumper." And
aren't they afraid of?
They're all urban cowboys. It's all a bunch of busters. You know, now that these trucks have leather interiors and the super duper sound system and everything.
I know a lot of people that have F-150s, and I can only think about 2 or 3 that really need the pickup part.
Right. Well, the guys behind me in the tunnel, they were no help whatsoever. But anyway,
did anybody in the tunnel help push the car?
Okay, so a brother and a Chrysler 300 got out, and he helped me push it. And what he was in front of me. What he would do is he'd drive up 100 yards. We'd push it to his car. He'd drive his car up 100 yards, come back, and we'd push it up to his car.
Where were the people behind you?
Honking on their horns and being pissed off, but none of those sumbitches got out to help us push. They wouldn't use their trucks.
It's easy to bitch. I mean, I admit I'd be one of those people bitching and not helping, probably.
But it was
because I'd be cars back, not knowing what's going on up there.
And the other reason the car conked out because it was hot as balls, so it overheated. So now it's really hot too, and we're pushing this thing. So it was very, very miserable day.
But this time it was just no gas.
This time ran out of gas. So the people at the pump next to me are driving an Edsel, so you don't see a lot of those. They offer to help. The dad, Kurt, is pretty handy, and he's like, "Well, you know, you may have killed the fuel pump because sometimes in the older cars when they go dry they die." And so we're just talking, and they were super nice, and we kind of hit it off. And I said, you know, if you guys ever want to tour the station, let me know, and I'll be happy to take you around. And so then I, you know, ran up to Resurrection Cemetery to pay my respects to my grandpa and got back to my car and had it towed home, which is always humiliating. And the next time I heard from Kurt, he says, you know, hey, I got some bad news. My son, Eric, this kid's just a teenager, great kid, has got cancer. And I said, what? He has this very severe cancer, and he's lost his leg to this cancer. And he's got a group on Facebook called Eric's Troopers. These guys have got more guts than anybody you'll ever meet. Yeah. They're fighting the disease. They're rallying for Eric. And as they're rallying for Eric, who's now lost his leg and is constantly being treated for more occurrences of the cancer, and it's going further, and they're having to do this and they're having to do that, and he's donating his body parts for research to try and help other kids who might have this. We find out Kurt has cancer too. And you're like, how much can one family take? Well, anyways, I see Amy last night and some other folks from her family at Costco. They're not dancing around like they've been drunk at Mardi Gras, but they just have a strength about them and a spirit about them that makes me feel like the biggest, you know, punk in the world for bitching about a sore throat.
A sore throat, yeah, not wanting to work.
Yeah, give me all the sore throats you got, man. So this one's for Eric and Kurt and Amy and the rest of their family. The Deans are some great people, and
puts things in perspective.
Yeah, everybody knows somebody like that, and I think it's I'm not saying don't feel bad because we all have a right to feel bad, but
yeah, because your voice is shot.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, this is, you know, everybody's actually happy they don't have to hear me talk that much. But except for those of you out there listening to us on iTunes, Google Podcast, maybe you're going to our website, ML Soul of Detroit. Follow us on Facebook, ML Soul of Detroit. Twitter, ML Soul of Detroit. Please rate us.
Yeah.
Unless you hate us. And
hey, that's quite a voice you've got there. You ever think about doing radio?
But yeah, so under the weather and in court with Carmack today. And boy, I'll tell you what, this guy, he's a different kind of cat.
Mm-hmm.
I think anybody who's listened to Charlie LaDuff's podcast has heard him. And you understand that his mind does not move in a linear manner. And so the story that we worked, for months on, involving these secret recordings he made of negotiations with his conversations, I should say, with his attorney, Todd Flood, who's also the special prosecutor in the Flint water crisis. And he hired Flood to try and work out a deal with Mayor Duggan to resolve their differences, you know, for people who
what does that mean? Okay, so the city is suing. This all goes back to a land deal that Carmack made. He sold a piece of land that we understand the city didn't think he owned because he didn't file the right paperwork and didn't pay taxes on it.
So it's a bunch of land deals wrapped up in his dispute with the city. But the big one, the one that has him in court now being charged with fraud, is Carmack. And again, I think I've talked to him enough over the past year that I kind of understand where he's coming from. There's a term I use called Carmack logic, where it sort of makes sense to him.
Okay.
And if you
kind of like OJ logic,
if you can sort of do a schematic, it does kind of come around to a way that sort of makes sense.
Well, did he buy the land or not?
So he spent about $250,000 developing some land that he wanted to buy from the city. And then the city said, okay, we're going to sell you this land. He says, they put a condition on it, which was you got to give Kwame Kilpatrick $50,000. And he said, I'm not paying any bribe money.
Who told him that?
He claims Derek Miller, some people from the city and the Kilpatrick administration back then. You got to remember, this is in the mid-2000s when it was kind of anything goes. So he said when he was told he had to come up with some dough, he's going to walk away from the deal. And then later, not too much before Kilpatrick fell, city officials came to him with another piece of land, not on the water, nothing he could have turned into his marina and counter development. But there's another piece of land that they said had some value. And they said, if you give us $250,000, you can have this piece of land. Now, Carmack viewed that as a make good on the $250,000 he spent on the land he didn't get. So the city sends him a deed, he says. He never gave him the $250,000. He sat on the land for years. And then at some point he must have realized it had some value. And he goes to the city and he says, hey, you guys kind of screwed me on my other deal, but you gave me this land.
What year is this?
This would be like 2016, 2015.
So well post-Kwame.
Yeah, 6-7 years later. Several administrations later, because remember you had Kilpatrick, then you had Mayor
Bing?
No, before that, Mayor Cockrell, who served the rest of Kilpatrick's term. The city council president who moved up.
A.K.A. Shrek, according to...
Shrek, that's right. You're not my daddy.
Conjures.
And then you had Mayor Duggan. And so a lot of changes in City Hall, but Carmack figures this land is worth something, so he sells it for $1 million. Now at some point, but before he sells it, he goes to City Council and he says, you screwed me on this other deal. I want you to make me whole on this other deal. I want you to do right by me. And then he holds up this deed and he waves it for City Council and he says, and by the way, you sent me a deed for this property. I'm going to sell it unless you tell me not to. And people are like, what do you get that deed from? Give us a copy of that deed. We want that deed. City council president at the time grabs the deed and looks at it. He never hears back from anybody. And so he sells it. He basically, it's kind of like stop me before I kill again.
Wait, so the city council president actually took the physical deed?
Took either the deed
or
a copy of it.
That story sounds very hard to believe.
So it's pretty crazy. So what ends up happening is over time the city says, well, we want the money, the $250,000 you're supposed to give us for the land. Carmack says, no, you owed me that money, so we're kind of even. City says, no, we don't feel that way. They sue him.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're trying to evict him from his shop on Michigan Avenue because they say he doesn't own it anymore. He says he still does because of
why would they? Okay, why would they say he doesn't own it anymore because of a bankruptcy?
Well, let's file the $1 million deal through before we send people's heads into a crisis with this other mess. And so the city sues him, and then eventually they charge him with fraud. And I'm telling Bob, I said, I think you're in trouble here because this sort of feels to me like you tell me if that you're going to shoot me in the face. And if I don't tell you not to shoot me in the face and you shoot me in the face, I think you're still in trouble,
yeah,
right?
A law is still a law.
Yeah. So
Bob's like, other people say.
Bob's like, but
may be the worst negotiator I've ever seen.
Says there's no intent here. And I'm like, intent. So I call Peter Henning, who's a very well-regarded former federal prosecutor, law professor at Wayne State University. And I said, so I tell him the whole story. I used my shoot me in the face analogy. He's like, oh, very good, very good. I said, but you know what, Peter? He says he didn't have any intent. He goes, oh, intent. I said, yeah, he said he had no intent. He goes, intent is the key point in any white-collar crime. And I said, what? He said, he may have a case here. And I said, wait a minute. He took the land and he sold it. He agreed to give him $250,000. He didn't give him $250,000, so there's a problem right there. He says, yeah, but did he tell him what he's going to do? And I told him the whole story. I said, we went to city officials and said, I got this deed. You know, do you want this deed back? If not, I'm going to sell it. And nobody told him not to. He goes, oh, he actually went before. I said, yeah, he's got video of him going to city council saying, here's this deed. He says, he may have a very good case.
Really?
So this is what I'm saying. To the rest of us, it sounds crazy. To Bob, it makes sense. And the amazing thing is, maybe he's going to be okay.
This guy can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag.
What exactly did he hire Flood to do then? Because you're saying to make a deal. Is it just like a settlement to drop the lawsuit? The city?
So this is where the story gets tricky and why it takes us so long to get to the bottom of these things. We've got 40 minutes of these recordings, and I know Charlie's played some of them on No BS News Hour.
My favorite part being the small talk at the very beginning. I love small talk. It's so ludicrous.
Well, so this is I've listened to these recordings over and over again. I've worked on this story off and on for months, and I'm still not sure what Carmack has to bargain, and I'm still not sure what he was asking for, and neither was Flood. And Flood will tell you, by the way, that Carmack was not my client. I just was, I guess, helping out. I don't know.
Did he ever pay him?
He never got paid. And Carmack acknowledges he never got sent a bill. But at the same time, before Flood would talk about it, he asked that Flood
was his intent for him to be his lawyer.
Yeah, we didn't get an intent there. Believe me, I was already too deep in law school. But Flood did want Carmack to sign a release, releasing him from his attorney-client privilege. So it's kind of fuzzy who's playing what. But through the whole thing, Flood talks about talking to Duggan, and Duggan's saying, well, what does he want? You know, tell if he wants money, tell him to tell me how much. We'll see what it's. And when you listen to these tapes, what's fascinating about it, and also a little frustrating, is you're never really sure what people are trying to do. It's like everybody. It's almost like Reservoir Dogs, where everybody's circling each other and they each have a gun on each other.
Like
the first
a
guy,
Mexican standoff,
right? The first. Well, I don't want
That's what it's called.
I don't want to get in any trouble here. Let's just say it's a standoff of people who may or may not come from the state of Monterey.
But don't we know what each side is kind of thinking? I mean, I know that doesn't hold up in a court.
So here's the crazy part. Not that it's not crazy enough already. So I call the mayor's people and say, well, you know, do you acknowledge that, you know, because the first thing you do is you authenticate these recordings, right? I mean, we got a mayor in Warren who appears to be very clearly on the tape. But the Adobe Cellophone fraud. So everybody, Flood, the mayor.
Adobe Cellophone.
It's very sophisticated equipment. And Carmack all acknowledge their roles in this. Nobody disputes that it's them on the tapes and that the nature of these discussions
We can agree it was not Fouts on that tape.
It was not Fouts on that tape.
No, that was not me on the tape.
Yes, we just settled that.
One thing we can agree on.
So I tell the mayor's people, I want to talk to the mayor. And they're like, well, he doesn't really want to talk about this. I said, well, I understand that, but it's important that we hear from him because there's these high-level negotiations, and we want to know how serious he was. What was he thinking about this? And, of course, we go through the whole thing I go through with everybody, which is I know you don't want to talk to me, but you got to talk to me. And if you don't want to do it voluntarily, you know, what I give people is an option about when and where to meet. The option is not whether we're going to meet. So we basically got down to it's probably better for the mayor to sit down and answer questions than to run away and hear questions and maybe not give me some answers.
That goes for everybody.
And I tell them all. I tell everybody this. If people watch my stuff for Fox 2, you will see me, unless I think I'm going to catch you red-handed, you will see me call and say, can we meet? And if they don't want to meet, then we go fight them, which I hate because it means I got to get up early. I got to stand in the rain. I got to sit out in the heat. I got to stay in the freezing.
But he met, and
yeah, he was great. Well, here's the amazing thing. He agrees to sit down, and then he tells us, and I don't want to steal my own thunder here, but he tells us, I was never really serious about negotiating with him. I was just yeah, exactly. His intent was not to negotiate, but it was to compile evidence against Carmack to try and get the cops to lock him up. He was compiling evidence. And the thing about these negotiations is they all happened between the time Carmack showed this video of the mayor going to meet some woman who was not his wife and the mayor holding a press conference saying, I think I've been threatened. So this is kind of what really was going on in between these 2 days, when these two events about a week apart, when people are thinking, well, these guys never talk to each other. Oh, hell yeah, they talk to each other. I mean, through Flood, the attorney, and they were trying to work out a deal. At least they thought they were, or maybe
But
they
nobody knows what exactly what each side wanted.
Exactly. And so this is kind of my thing, and we talked about this before.
It's just funny. I feel like an adult in the room just say, hey, each of you just drop it. Drop the lawsuit, drop your attacks, and let's just be done with it.
Except
he's got a big land sale.
Yeah, except if the mayor's right, then Carmack owes the city $250,000, maybe the $1 million he got for it. He probably owes for this land he's been using that they're trying to evict him from. So to me, this is somewhat unsatisfying that we can't tell you exactly what everybody was angling for. But to me, this is kind of the essence of what I do, which is try and ask questions, get answers, present it in what I hope is a compelling way, and then we let people decide what they think. Do you think Duggan really was trying to trap Carmack, or was Duggan trying to work out a deal? And when he realized he couldn't work out a deal, he runs and has a press conference and says, they were trying to trick me. I mean, that's for the viewers to decide.
Wow.
And I'm getting pissed off about stuff. I'm driving to court this morning, and I see some jag-off roll down his window and flick out a cigarette butt.
Yeah.
Now maybe I'm just a little highly strung right now, but I got to tell you, we got enough garbage in the city of Detroit already, human and otherwise. And I know why the guy flicked the butt out, because he didn't want it in his car, right?
Yeah.
So why does he think
Habit.
anybody else wants it?
I don't know. I never understood people that litter in general. It's like, just really can't wait to get to your destination.
You're in Detroit, and maybe others too, but I spend most of my time in Detroit. When you pull up to a park or a store or someplace you want to do some business, you want to relax, you want to have a good time, and there's a friggin' diaper sitting next to your car. I mean, a used diaper.
Yeah.
And I'm big on picking up trash. I kind of have a rule of thumb. I'll pick up whatever trash I can find, except for something that would have gone in somebody's mouth.
It's poop.
Is a diaper as bad of a thing to dump in the city of Detroit as say, a bunch of tires or a boat? I don't know why people treat the city like a fucking disposal.
It's very frustrating. I will say this about a diaper. A diaper is small and it's easy to put in a trash can. A tire is big and hard to put in a trash can.
Rid of.
But I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, endorsing dumping. In fact, I've spent a lot of time trying to bust dumpers in my career.
Is it getting any better in Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
Illegal dumping?
Yeah, I think illegal dumping is getting better. I think the city's doing a better job cracking down on things. And the demolitions, whether they're paying too much and whether the dirt should have been free or what have you, Charlie's done some great work on those topics. Yeah. Houses are getting knocked down in a way they haven't for a long time.
Even houses that shouldn't be knocked down are getting knocked down.
That's kind of where the dysfunctional bureaucracy comes in.
Well, it's very similar to the Carmack thing. I don't know if paperwork is a strong suit of the city.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Maybe the city did send a deed to Carmack, and they shouldn't have. But does that give them the right to sell the land? And that's where this case is going now. Is it may. The prosecution may ultimately have to say, listen, the city doesn't have its act together. Does that allow a guy to take land? And Carmack may say, listen, the city said this is your land. I'm going to take the city at its word.
I remember we had Duggan on, 2013 maybe, in the summer of 2013. And
when he first ran for mayor.
Yes, exactly.
Or after he got knocked off the ballot.
It would have been summer of 2013. You tell me.
I think he was probably doing the write-in at that time.
But one of his big pushes was the fact that nothing is computerized. There's no databases. There's no nothing. And he told a story about his wife getting new dog tags and how they go, here's your paper. And it was from last year's because they didn't have new papers. Is that getting any better?
My first quote-unquote investigation after starting in City Hall in 2000 for the Free Press was that the new dog licenses were not in yet. In fact, I think they were maybe like 3 or 4 months behind or something. And my lead was something like dog license or canine licenses in the city of Detroit are 1 dog year behind. So that's always been a problem. There's still a lot of paper, but I think the systems are getting better. I think, I know when I pay my taxes, they cash the checks a lot faster, and which is important because what they used to do is they'd cash your check late and they'd assess you a late fee because they based when you paid.
Their fault?
Yes. And in fact, when I caught this, I took several checks back to City Hall and said, bills. And I said, why am I being assessed a late fee? You can see I paid it on time. Like, yeah, but we didn't record it until it was late. And I said, well, that's not my
fault.
problem.
Yeah.
And they reached in a drawer and they had forms already for late payment refunds because they knew they had a problem. So they were so used to correcting their own. I mean,
is that any better?
I think it's better. I think it's much better. But and there's a lot of things that I think are better in the city of Detroit, which isn't to say
the bar
we
was
don't
so
have a long
low.
way to go. Well, that's the other thing is you had Kwame Kilpatrick bragging about cutting the grass. I'm like, excuse me?
That's the least.
If you can't cut the grass,
things you can
you
do.
shouldn't be in office. Now you're bragging about
or trash pickup or snow. Now where you live, and I don't know how much you want to reveal, but doesn't that neighborhood pay for private plowing because the city's so lax on it?
So I live in East English Village on the east side. We do contribute to a neighborhood fund where when there's so much snow, we'll get the interior streets plowed. But I live on Outer Drive, and that's a county road. So that road gets plowed by the county pretty well. But, yeah, city streets, they're getting better. They used to – I think the rule was they used to plow a 6-foot wide stretch down city streets whenever they could get to it. Now I think it's 9 feet or 12 feet, which sounds like, what are you talking about? Except when it's only 6 feet, only one car can go through.
Yeah.
But now when you get to like 9 or 12 feet,
1.5,
maybe 2 cars can pass.
I won't change my mind on anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me. I'm dug in, and I'll never change.
Freight nut. Freight so. Freight nut. Freight so. Freight nut infinity. Freight so infinity plus 1. No.
It's time again for the Great Debate, featuring Marc Fellhauer, Shawn Windsor of the Detroit Free Press, and your old pal ML Elrick here from Fox 2 News. And Fox 2 News has a reputation of being to the right. Well, I'd like to say it's really that we are right, as in correct. And I'm gonna make my point with great alacrity with this week's topic, which is the Detroit Lions draft picks and Matt Stafford. Where the hell are we going? I'd like to get Shawn's take on this to start us off because he hasn't been wrong about anything except for the first Michigan State basketball game, the second a Michigan State basketball game, and perhaps his prediction that the University of Michigan Wolverine basketball team will win the Big Ten tournament. He doesn't even have the Spartans in the finals. So obviously this is a man whose word you can take to the bank. Shawn, thank you so much for I would have been worried if you picked us in the Big Ten tournament.
Well, I don't know that Tom Izzo. It's good to be with you, I think, or at least Mark.
Thanks, John.
Hey, look, I'm happy for your Spartans. I'm not sure they think they're going to be there Sunday. I don't think they necessarily want to be there Sunday, but I think if they're there, then obviously they're going to want to win. Sure. They want to work Nick Ward back in and get their rhythm a little bit and then get some rest.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they'd hate to win again, and if that's the case, they'll just be like another team that hates victory, except the Detroit Lions can't win again because they haven't won. And if you ask me, these moves they've made with these free agent signings, they're not gonna win.
You're a Lions fan. You have every right to not like this.
I am not a Lions fan. I cannot reward incompetence internally
you're
like
a Lions
that.
fan. I mean, look, you grow up next to Detroit and Grosse Pointe, you're gonna be a Lions fan.
That's
right. I mean, that's just you're right. They went big, not huge, but they went big. They got four players so far. The biggest catch. Maybe you don't like this guy either. Trey Flowers, a former now defensive end from New England. They made him the 5th highest paid defensive guy in the league. That's a little worrisome, and I can understand your concern there.
Certainly not the Patriot way, right?
Yeah, people keep talking about they being New England West or doing it what the Patriots did. The Patriots did it via the draft.
Yeah, and
finding talent.
I love that the Lions needed a tight end, so they went out and they stole Gronk from the Patriots, right?
Yeah. Well, or a small facsimile thereof from Pittsburgh.
He's a Steeler. No, you're right. The Patriots do it in the draft, but come on, you know what they do? They do it with Brady and Belichick, or Belichick and Brady. Maybe that's the order you should use. And they do occasionally sign free agents that really matter. I mean, Randy Moss, obviously they didn't win a Super Bowl with him, but he made a big difference. They've had a couple of cornerbacks, so they're just smart about it. They see one year what they maybe struggle with a little bit, or they lose in the end, and they think, okay, we're going to get that piece. But that's it. They don't. You're right. They don't generally. They're not one of the big spenders in the league. They're great at developing players.
But if we're gonna steal Patriots, you name the two I want: Belichick and Brady. Instead, our great New England Patriots steals over the years have been Damian Woody, LeGarrette Blount, Matt Castle, What?
Yet they get Kyle Van Noy, who flips a switch and becomes really good. I don't understand it. So instead of emulating where you came from, can't Quinn be his own man, or is it just that's what he knows?
Look, it's like we said, they're developing guys. You know, Kyle Van Noy goes to New England, and it's a different level of coaching. But back to your question, Mark, I think with Quinn, it's true of most general managers. You take chances on guys that you know, right? Mm-hmm. Or that you've had some. Most general managers have connections. They've worked at other franchises, or they've been involved with other coaches, and those coaches sort of go out and get other jobs, and so you pick up the phone. Hey, what do you think about this guy? I mean, that's just kind of how this works. So it's just that they're here, and New England's there, and so there seems to be a direct pipeline, but it's not that unusual. Maybe the number now is right, especially the fact that they went and got Patricia. But I'm with you, Mike, in terms of what's that?
I'm not sold on Patricia. I can tell you actually right now. I think he should have been fired after year one.
I
know why he wouldn't.
He should have had a background check. That's where it begins and ends for me. But
is there anything? I mean, you're closer and you follow more. Is there anything Matt Patricia showed you that says this is the guy that could win a Super Bowl as a head coach?
Well, here's what I think he did, and he's got a lot of work to do, and I don't necessarily. I mean, he may well just be in over his head, and he'll never figure it out. I think, though, he knows the game, right? Obviously, and he understands how to run some stuff and teach some stuff in the way that New England did. That's the one thing that you hope they bring from there. Is
great coordinator.
Is that philosophy of adapting and adjusting week to week, which New England has done better than anybody in the history of the game. So I think he's got the potential to do that. Does he know how to communicate? Can he run a locker room? Can he be the front man in a way? He's got a lot of work to do with that. And I think there'd be some people in the organization that would tell you that. I don't know how much he thinks that, and if he doesn't think that at all, then yeah, he's not going to last.
But I expect the Alliance to fill my ears with a bunch of garbage. You're my objective friend, my man at the Free Press who knows, who's fearless in terms of evaluating what these teams are doing and looking at the talent and telling us whether or not we should get excited or not. Are you seriously telling me that getting these guys who were either from New England or were cast off from New England or have some DNA from the Patriots in their blood is going to turn this Lions team into a winner next year? I mean, I can't see it because you're on the burner, but if you were sitting across from me, would you be telling me that with a straight face?
Well, yeah, because it's not just these guys, right?
Outrageous.
They got a pretty good running back last year. He got hurt. I mean, you got to get lucky a little bit in that way. We're not going to say they're going to get to a Super Bowl, but look, Danny Amendola, the slot receiver they got, he's probably not going to do much. Justin Coleman is a good player in Seattle.
He's for $3 million. Amendola, he's not going to do much for $3 million.
Could be up to $6 million.
He'll be their third option. I mean, maybe you can get a tough first down on 3rd and 6 and find some space. I mean, he's 33, I think. So but Coleman, who was in New England but who was in Seattle, the cornerback, he's a solid player. The Flowers is a really good player. I mean, I don't know why they would come here and get worse. Well, let me back
wait a minute. Yeah.
Let me back
hold on a second.
There's at least a chance that they come here and help. I mean, are these the pieces that are going to lead to a parade? No.
Well,
they got other issues. They got a quarterback who's got to rediscover himself and play the kind of ball he was a couple of years ago.
Wide receivers come and go. Matthew Stafford always blows.
But yeah. Oh, did you learn that with your furry hat on? Cosplay.
I just made that up.
Sitting in the end zone.
I'm not a furry, man. All my fetishes are pretty straightforward.
That's a Pulitzer Prize-winning poem right there.
Well, they give them for the arts. they give them for literature. So I'm not ruled out. I may have a shot this year.
I like that you love the Lions so much you hate them. That's what's.
Well,
I mean, you could say that about a lot of the way you a lot of things you look at in life, right?
I will say
that.
I will disagree
Sean,
with ML on that. I have a feeling if they were really good, you would be right there rooting them on.
Of course he would.
Not to the extent of your Spartans, but come on.
No, he'd be more than the Spartans. He didn't grow up with the Spartans. He grew up with the Lions.
There's also those people that claim they're
and the Red Wings.
They're Lions free, which I don't believe that because the second the team is good, they are going to be there. They're going to be watching. They're going to be wearing the apparel.
Of course they are.
It's
of course,
NFL.
Little Mikey is. You can just see him now.
I'm holding out for the second Super Bowl ring.
Holding his daddy's hand, and that's how he'll feel when they start winning. He'll cry.
I'm as excited about the team now as I was before they signed the 4. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. You've been conditioned by a half century of,
Yeah, fair enough.
losing.
That's their fault, though, not mine.
We've been
groomed. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's your fault.
No.
You're a victim here. I don't want to call Mike that, but you are.
That's right. That's right. Well, there's your great debate, folks, where everybody but me is wrong.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Soul of Detroit Geek of the Week is brought to you by absolutely nobody, because we don't have any sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor this show, just drop some cash off at my house. I live in Detroit. It happens more than you'd think. You can certainly reach out to us on Facebook, ML Soul of Detroit. On Twitter, ML Soul of Detroit. Our website is ML Soul of Detroit. We have a phone number, 313-288-9070. That comes out to Butterfield 89070. If you don't get that, send us a direct message. We'll explain it. We'll be happy to get that to you. And, of course, you can listen to us on iTunes and Google Podcast. Rate us unless you hate us. Now it's time for us to talk about some people who we really don't appreciate at all. Of course, it's our Geek of the Week segment. And Drew is here not because he's the Geek of the Week, but because he got a little bile in his duct.
I'm happy to pile in. There is great support, though, for Felicity Huffman and Lori Lawton. I've noticed that the tide seems to be turning in their favor.
Oh, really? Did
Maybe
they
not.
pay to move the Tide? Because I understand some of their kids were really good with the Tide when they were on the crew team, except they weren't on the crew.
So are they? Is it a combined? Are they our nomination combined, or is it everybody involved in Operation Varsity Blues? Is that what they called it?
Yeah, I know. And James Vanderbeek tweeted about it, by the way. He's outraged.
Oh, really? Just want to be associated with it?
I just thought it was funny because he's the star of the movie that he would say something. But
I was never a big Vanderbeek fan unless you've watched How I Met Your Mother.
On. What about The Creek?
I liked Holmes.
Holmes, yeah, Katie Holmes.
And was it Michelle Williams?
Michelle Williams, yeah.
I
Pacey.
like both of them. Yeah.
No one knows Pacey's real name.
I don't think he's as hot as he thinks he is.
But that's why he's so great on this, because he plays this guy who's a lifeguard at a water park. And he tries to explain why his job is so crucial, because if he doesn't tell the kids to go at the right time, they could die.
So he's playing a minimum wage type
power
adult.
hungry.
Right, yeah. Former traveling band guy from somewhere in Canada, and Robin's his ex-girlfriend. But I've got us way off topic.
That's interesting.
Who do you fault with the whole college bribery scandal?
Well, so let's set this up for people. It turns out there are rich sons of bitches who have too much money and not enough brains, and it looks like their kids don't have any brains either. So they're trying to get them into these prestigious colleges by helping other people take their admissions tests and by claiming that they're athletes or they have some sort of athletic aptitude, because I guess that makes it easier for you to get
they
in.
can say the rowing team's recruiting me. I didn't realize the rowing team had so much power in admissions, but apparently they do.
Yeah, well,
on the female side of
sure.
this.
They're doing anything they can to try and get their kids in, as if rich kids whose moms and dads are in Hollywood or CEOs
are going to have a tough life.
They need any more advantages to getting into these college. I mean, you got to give me. It makes me want to.
Maybe I'm off on this. I was really a little surprised at first that there was so much anger, but the more it sunk in, it was, this is, well, first of all, it's incredible that parents, supposed to tell your kids that they're not supposed to cheat, and they're cheating for their kids. And I don't know, I wanted to make it something broader, that we just don't seem to want to let kids do anything themselves anymore. They don't seem to have to, in so many cases, they don't have to earn it. We get them private coaches when they're playing sports, when they're little, and tutors and pre-SAT classes. And
the outrage really comes from one of those things where we always knew this went on, but now we see it right in our face and exactly how it goes on. Like you're seeing the sausage being made.
A parent paying someone to take their kids' SAT?
I just mean rich people using the advantage to get their kids into these elite universities.
Not surprising. No.
It's one of those moments where you're like, yes, I knew that's how it worked. But anybody who has
confirmation.
My kids are 19 and 20, and every kid I know that's around their age, every family I know that's around their age, is crapping their pants every fall, waiting to see whether their kid gets waitlisted at Michigan or Michigan State. And I'm sitting here as a parent saying, look at the grades these kids have, and I'm saying, You're waitlisting these kids. When I applied to those schools, they would have been on a scholarship at either Michigan or Michigan State, and they're being put on ice. And some of these kids are told they can't go until the spring semester, so they get pissed off and they go someplace else. And we lose all these great kids. And now we see these rich people trying to get their kids into these kids have already had every frigging advantage they could possibly have. Although I know poor little rich girl is a real thing. But
I'm upset for the fact that I had to find stupid extracurricular activities I didn't want to do solely to be putted on a application when these people are just photoshopping.
Oh, when I was
Why
in
did
high
I just
school,
Photoshop?
When I was in high school, some guys, some smart asses,
No
came
one
up
checked
with
to see if I was ever in
the
SAD.
Transcendental Meditation Club, and they said, "What do we do in the Transcendental Meditation Club?" He said, "We join it and we put it on our college application."
Exactly.
That's all they
That's
did.
the old school way of cheating, not just Photoshop.
Why is everyone trying to gain some sort of, I don't know, is everyone gaming the system, but some gaming it otherwise?
It's the American way.
Just the idea that college is so not merit-based, I think, is distressing. The Ivy League, and I know we talked about this a little bit, look at what's happening to Asians in the Ivy League.
Mm-hmm.
They would be 35% of the Ivy League, but those schools have decided, no, we don't want that many Asians. They're a minority.
Yeah.
They've earned it, and they're shutting them down, and they're letting in Felicity Huffman's brat and Laura Lawton's brat because they throw some money around.
I was going to make
those are two different things. You're talking.
No, they
about,
are two different
You're talking
things,
about the
but-
overall admission standard that Harvard has versus some crooks that wanted to take bribes to get these brats in.
But the point being that it's not
I don't know
about
which one's
who's
worse.
studying the hardest and getting the best test scores. It's about who's, I mean, the schools have something to do with it because they're saying, we don't want that many Asians. And then again, there's these shortcuts with people writing fat checks. I don't know, just the whole thing is, it's college. It's the most PC place on the planet. What the hell's going on?
There was a great book that came out a few years ago looking at admissions to the Ivy League college. I think it was either looked at Yale or Harvard, and they found out that they were admitting a lot of WASPs, and so they needed more.
What?
Yes, so they needed, like 60, 80 years ago. So then they noticed that as they changed the leadership at the universities, they had more diversity, but what ended up happening was all the new people looked exactly like the new people in charge. And so when it was the WASPs, everybody who got admitted was the WASPs. Then they had some people, they maybe had people with more Jewish heritage, and then there were more people with Jewish heritage getting there. And then they find that there's more people with, and so what it showed me,
human nature?
Exactly, is that everybody wants it to be fair when they're getting screwed, but once they're in charge, it's like, okay, it's time to even up.
Now it's our chance.
I get exactly.
that.
We know how it's done. We're going to do it. That's what happened to Kilpatrick. His dad said, we saw the McNamara administration. We know how to do this. And they started trying to steal. It didn't work out so good.
What about the legacy kids? George Bush and maybe Jared Kushner. I don't know that whole story, but
what is
these people from Harvard and Yale are running the free world.
You're suggesting to me that George Bush didn't get a 1600 on the SAT?
No.
What is the thinking behind having legacy?
By the way, he didn't want people knowing his grades or test scores either. Trump is not the first president to try and hide his academic record.
Well, I would think with Bush, the test he wanted people not to get were his drug tests.
Yeah.
And he admitted to the partying.
What would a school say? Like, why would they want legacy admissions? Like, why is it to their advantage? Is it to get the parents to keep donating?
Keep it coming. Keep the money coming.
Oh, okay.
I guess. I don't know. I don't really quite understand it. It just seems that it's not based on grades and SATs after all. And you think when somebody puts that school next to their name that, they must be really smart. And I think we find that
a lot of time, though,
maybe not.
In the real world, maybe getting a job isn't solely based on the best person applying for the job, too, because it's who you know. It's just kind of how this world works.
But I do think we like to believe that school for kids is fair, or we try to make it fair, and maybe we're just not even close.
Well, I think the lesson that we now there was another, I don't know if it was a book or it was an article that said that very few valedictorians end up being the innovators, the CEOs. It's the people who aren't first in their class all the time, because to be first in your class all the time, all you got to do is study, and you don't have that sort of creativity. You follow the rules. And so the kids who aren't the 4.0 kids tend to be the ones that are the real difference makers. But I think the real mistake that we're making here is giving kids the idea that you have to get into this place. Things have to go this way, otherwise you're screwed. Whereas how many people, wanted to go to, like, at one time I thought I wanted to go to Northwestern, and I didn't get in. And I went to Michigan State. Now I went on a campus tour, and the chick who gave us the campus tour, I was like, this is just like every biatch I grew up with, so I don't want to go here. And I couldn't afford it anyway. But I ended up going to Michigan State, and boy, that worked out great for me. So the key is not to get everything you want or to follow the exact map. It's what you do when things go off the rails.
Unless you want to work in politics.
Unless you want to be a Supreme Court justice.
Everybody seems to be from Harvard and Yale in Congress.
Yes.
Doesn't it seem that maybe the parents want it more than the kids in these cases? It's more important to the parents.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I want Charlotte to go to
brag about their kids, right?
DeVry is a fine institution.
Does DeVry exist?
Very merit-based.
I didn't think DeVry was around anymore.
Yeah,
ITT is the one they blew up.
ITT. That's where Brandon went. The school that doesn't exist anymore. ITT Tech.
He still has
The
to
good
pay
thing
his
there
loans.
is they're not going to hit him up for alumni contributions.
But he was saying today he still owed student loans after they blew up.
I know he doesn't think that's fair.
It's not fair.
Well, but the bank doesn't decide that. Doesn't feel that way about it.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night. You've got the time.
I can't be the only one who loves that Pee Wee Herman is trying to get into a party that Duran Duran is at. They would never let Pee Wee Herman in a Duran Duran.
That's why I just keep knocking.
He won't get in.
I like the idea of him lightening up their party a little bit.
Yeah, you get him and George Michael in there, and then the Vice Squad, and you got a hell of a party. But we're not here to talk about Pee Wee, and we're not here to talk about Duran Duran, although I could do that all night. We have our first listener suggestion for Room 7609, where we take underappreciated or maybe forgotten or somehow tarnished new wave gems, and we polish them, and we make them sparkle, and we get them at least maybe 2 or 3 extra Spotify plays. And
Does the band get any credit for this?
Yeah, they get.
Or do we get all the credit for polishing it off?
No. I think they get the money.
They get a nickel.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't.
They
We
get a
don't
nickel
get
from
nothing.
Spotify.
But our selection this week is Psychedelic Furs, and I think there are a lot of people who say
Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, who doesn't appreciate the Psychedelic Furs? Love My Way,
Oh, they have
great.
so many great tracks.
Heartbreak, Beat.
I love the Furs.
Yeah.
Love them. All That Money Wants.
Money
The Ghost in You.
Yeah.
Heaven.
Yeah, so they've done pretty well, but like
Very well.
all great bands, I don't know if this was a B-side or not, or just something that people didn't really appreciate, but one of my favorite, and this is how you know that this is an obscure Psychedelic Furs song, is I heard it on public radio. That's how you know that you found an obscure new wave hit.
It is a political song. Did you know that? It was an anti-Reagan song.
It's very timely now, too, because we have a president who's willing to let journalists get killed if we can keep the cheap gas coming from Saudi Arabia. And if anybody's gone to the pump lately, you know that the gas prices are going up. And as soon as it gets hot out, they're going to go even higher. And so our Room 7609 selection for this week, brought to us by one of our loyal listeners on Twitter, is President Gas.
Get It's you and I. It's a real cowboy-centric electric company. Every day is happy days. It's hell without the sin. But don't cry, don't do anything. No lies back in the government. No tears, party time is here again. President Gas is all for president. Right now, put your kisses down. Say yeah, say yes again. Stand up, there's a head count. President Gas on everything but roller skates. It's sick, the price of medicine. Stand up, we'll put you on your feet again. Open up your eyes just to check that you're asleep again. President Gas, President Gas again.
So, Mark, this is about Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is responsible for more really great songs.
I guess, yeah. Land of Confusion, is that about Reagan?
Well,
there were a few.
I just remember the puppets in that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course Sting did "In Europe and America." Sorry, my voice is kind of gone. But where is we had George Bush, who, you know, whether you liked him or not, was kind of a rich subject, you know, and then you had then you got Trump, who's kind of a rich subject. Where is this great political music? All the Smith stuff.
Oh, Clinton would have created some material, you would think.
You say Clinton, I was just about to say Sex Pistols. That could have been his Secret Service call sign. But I mean, these were all about Margaret Thatcher, about the Queen of England. Where is this great sort of subvert everything with Pink Floyd? They're doing great songs about World War II.
Well, I remember Rage Against the Machine did a lot of stuff, a lot of political stuff. You're going to love this. Pearl Jam had a lot of anti-Bush stuff. They had Bushwhacker, and Eddie was on the forefront of that.
George Bush is the president. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's. I couldn't even tell if that was Eddie or you. But there's no more political music anymore.
Well, there's
Tekashi 69 going to do an.
When I hear the hot songs of today, I just hear the same thing over and over and over and over. Hose bitches, I'm going to shoot you. We got to rap. We got to battle.
But hip hop didn't start out like that. Run DMC, It Was a Dream, was all about, economy and feeling oppressed by, please, Mr. Reagan, don't put me under fire. Stuff like that. Even hip hop had a political bent to it. Now it's, Ice Cube. I mean, America's Most Wanted, man. You want to save Africa austerity? We ain't got it so good in America. I mean, that's some great stuff.
Yeah, nice.
NWA. I mean, they were talking about Black Lives Matter in a very distinctive way.
Yeah. NAA was it's hard to compare anything now to NWA. Cardi B making money moves. I mean, it's just so indulgent and cliche.
Indulgent.
She had a very political tweet. I would like her to tweet more. That was hilarious on the shutdown.
Yeah, no,
going to the gynecologist.
Doesn't a lot of it feel really cliche too? Just it's not directed at me. I understand. I don't want
a lot of repetition.
Well, it's nihilism, is what it is. It's not really political activism.
There's one act I just thought of, and I don't even know if you guys. Do you know who Killer Mike is? He's got a show on Netflix too, and he's in Run the Jewels. He's incredibly political on both sides, but depending on what the issue. He's very pro-gun, but he's also black. So that's the only guy I can think of, though.
Well,
you used to be able to rattle it off like when you were younger.
People make a big mistake thinking that all black folks are pro-gun control, because there's a lot of black folks who lived in the South who thought, man, my church wouldn't have been bombed, my house wouldn't have been bombed, my kids would if I could have had a little firepower. And there's a huge movement that says, you take our guns, we're going to be at the mercy of all these crackers out there who are trying to impose their will. But anyways, see, Room 7609, it doesn't just unearth great gems.
It's opening doors.
It gives birth to high-minded political discourse.
Well, it's nice to get some feedback as well from people suggesting.
Yeah, we want your suggestions for Room 769. We want your suggestions for Geek of the Week. We want your suggestions for the Great Debate. You can get them to us at ML Soul of Detroit on Facebook, ML Soul of Detroit on Twitter, mlsoulofdetroit.com. You're probably seeing a little bit of a theme emerging here. And, of course, we'd love you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and on Google Podcast. Give us a rating. Let us know what you think. Give us some advice. Give us some feedback, man. I'm new at this shit. I don't think I got it down. Maybe you can help me. Maybe you can be really mean to me and we can have a mean tweets
Make 'em cry
thing. That's worked out for some other guys, right?
Oh, yeah. That's always fun to read the complaint. I always get pissed off as I'm reading them, and I think people enjoy hearing the negativity. And then you do get people who will have your back.
Yeah.
That's the nice part.
Yeah.
It's my first day.
So that's it for this week's edition of ML Soul Detroit, brought to you by the Red Shovel Network. We'll be back next week. Give us a listen, share it, rate it, and Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Gunsmoke. Produced and directed by
Marc Fellhauer.
Stars
ML
as Matt Dillon, U.S. Marshal. Featured in the cast were
Drew Lane,
Chester, Howard McNear as Doc, and
Shawn Windsor
as Kitty. George Walsh speaking.